Good morning. Good morning. Good to see y'all here. We'll go ahead and get started. This is the last week of this cycle, so we have a one shot next week in here as it's marriage retreat, and then if you're here and you're in either Day Parks class or Robert Farley's class, both of those resume regular schedules again next week. So this is the last week of this, just all being together in here like this. And we're going to finish out today talking about what we do, and specifically I want to spend some time talking about our missions partners. Scott's going to come and spend some time at the end of the class and talk more about budget and what that looks like and where our money goes, and talk through things that I probably don't understand as well as I should, and that's why Scott's going to come and talk to you about them. But I want to talk to you about our missions partner. I want to begin, though, reading from Psalm 67. It's a psalm I think I'll use this morning in the welcome for the service as well. It's a psalm that says in verse 1, "May God be gracious to us and bless us and make his face to shine upon us, that your way may be known on earth, your saving power among all nations. Let the peoples praise you, O God, let all the peoples praise you. Let the nations be glad and sing for joy, for you judge the peoples with equity and guide the nations upon earth. Let the peoples praise you, O God, let all the peoples praise you. The earth has yielded its increase, God. Our God shall bless us. God shall bless us, let all the ends of the earth fear him." It's a psalm about letting all the nations of the earth praise the Lord, letting them rejoice in his salvation. So as we talk about our missions partners, we want to keep this just in the forefront of this is our goal. This is why we partner with missionaries. It's why we do mission trips. It's why we spend money out of our budget. It's not to keep busy. It's not to take fun trips and to go to fun places in the world that you wouldn't otherwise go to. It's because we want the nations to be glad. We want the nations to rejoice in the salvation of God. We want them to hear the gospel and believe the gospel and be saved. And so as we talk through some of these missions partners today, what I want you to know is that's our goal. We are partnering with people who are doing real gospel work. We want these partnerships to be just that, real partnerships. That we know and trust these partners, we know their ministry, we know what they're doing, and then we're seeking to come alongside them and to serve them in a way that advances their work, so that after we leave, after we're there for a week and a half or 2 weeks, after we leave, that we have actually helped them, that their work on the ground will continue and we've served them well. So we're gonna jump right in, sort of talk through. You have seen these if you've been to Discover Buck Run, or if you've read even just the vision guide that comes out at the end of every year. Our 5 missions commitments, and I use these as a lens to talk through some of our specific partners. Our first mission commitment is to reach the unreached, that we want to take the gospel as God allows us, as God makes ways for us, to the ends of the earth. We desire every nation, every language, tribe, every person without discrimination to be able to hear the gospel and to believe and to be saved. We want to take the gospel to unreached people groups. And so part of that is why we partner with some of the folks that we partner with, because they're doing work amongst unreached people groups. When we talk about unreached people groups, there's really 2 categories. There's unreached, and then there's what the IMB calls unreached and unengaged. Unreached is, I believe, the demarcating line is less than 3% evangelical Christian. So if you live in a people group, you live in an area where less than 3% of your population is evangelical Christian, you're considered unreached. Unreached people groups, because they have so few Christians present, then in order for them to be reached with the gospel, almost always they're going to need help from the outside. They don't have enough Christians in their people group to sustain a missionary movement. They need people to come in from the outside. There are also what the IMB calls unreached, unengaged people groups. These are people groups that have essentially no Christian testimony, no Christian witness. Essentially, if there is a Christian there, we don't know about him yet. And so if they're going to be reached, it's going to have to all come from help from the outside, that there has to be church planting efforts, people sharing the gospel, people believing the gospel, and then starting churches that multiply, that start more churches. We desire to see every nation reach for the gospel of the Lord Jesus Christ. We want to preach the gospel. That's why one of our partners that we work so closely with is Kenny and Cheryl Morris. I think you'll see them. That's Kenny there on that bottom right picture. Kenny and Cheryl Morris are, I think, a really beautiful example of just what it looks like to follow the Lord in obedience. People think, well, everybody that's a missionary, they were called to be missionaries when they were 20 and when they were young and healthy and had their whole life ahead of them. Kenny was a farmer and a truck driver. They were almost at the end of their sort of working age. They were nearing retirement, and then in an Easter service, felt the Lord beginning to call them to something else. And so they answered that call much later in life than most missionaries do, and sold a lot of their stuff, moved to another part of the world, learned a language, which, if you know, learning languages is hard. Every year you are past like the age of 4, it gets exponentially harder to learn a new language. They learned a new language in their retirement age, and they've been in Panama now for, I think, almost 15 years, just serving faithfully there because they answered the call. They felt the Lord calling them, and they went. They are partners that we work really closely with. They're based in Panama City. Panama City is where they live full-time, but most of their work they do in a little village called Hake, working with the Imbra people. The Imbra are a native of that area, and the people group stretches from Hake, which is in Panama, right near the Colombian border, and that people group really encompasses that part of Panama, and then down into Colombia, and then honestly even into the far south parts of Colombia. And so what Kenny and Cheryl are doing, as the Imbra people move pretty freely between Panama and Colombia, is that they have a place there in Hake where they have reached many believers. They have a home that they've built there where this family that's trusted Christ, they live full-time. They receive teams from the States. They receive other missionaries who come to work with them. And they are seeing fruit where they are preaching the gospel, that locals are believing and being saved. They're then training those locals to share their faith and to plant churches. And then they're sending those locals out to places that Kenny and Cheryl can't go. There are places in Colombia and other parts of even of Panama that Kenny and Cheryl can't go. Or if Kenny can go, he can go for a short amount of time, but for safety reasons he can't go there. There are places in Colombia, cities in Colombia, that Kenny can't go. But these natives can, and so they're training them to plant churches to take the gospel to these really hard to reach places where there is no gospel presence. The fruit that they have seen in the last 15 years has been phenomenal. I was with them again this past September. I've been a few times, and every time I'm blown away by the work that they're doing as they're sharing the gospel, seeing people come to faith, and then immediately as they come to faith, they're saying, okay, now you have a responsibility to tell your people, to tell your family, to tell the people from your village, to tell them the same gospel that you've heard and believed, and they're equipping them then to take this gospel to these hard to reach places. Hake is a few miles from the Colombian border. It sits right on the coast right of the ocean, and there's a river that runs up kind of back really close into Colombia, and so they have planted churches basically all up that river of believers who have heard the gospel and believed and been saved. They do a really, really phenomenal job of working with local partners to plant churches, and so we come alongside of them. When we send teams, that's what our teams do, is we come alongside whatever work they're doing. We come and we share the gospel with them. The team that was there in September, in addition, we did some stuff around sort of their compound just to make it more livable. But what we did every day is we would go out with some of our local partners, and we would walk the village, and then we would find people, and we would say, hey, do you have 5 minutes for us to tell you a Bible story? And in that culture, almost everybody says yes, right? If you go down to the Speedway and say, do you have 5 minutes for me to tell you a Bible story? They might tell you no. Not in Hake. Everybody says yes. And so we would, there with our partners, we would tell Bible stories, and we would tell people about the gospel and have conversations. It was just a really beautiful thing. What we did while we were there is the same thing they do nearly every day. They're not doing a bunch of special stuff because the Americans are there. That every day they're going out and they're walking the village. They're building relationships. They're telling people Bible stories. They're telling them about the gospel that they might plant churches. Kenny and Cheryl end up stateside a few times a year. You've probably heard us talk about them. If you don't know them, we try to recognize them when they're here. When they're stateside, unless they're presenting or sharing with another church, we're their home church. They worship with us. If you've not met them, please pay attention. Next time we say Kenny and Cheryl are here, take a moment. Go introduce yourself. Let them know who you are. And I want you to be aware of their ministry because they are really vital to Buck Run. They're members. They get the same deacon phone calls that all of us do because they're members of Buck Run. They're just the further south members of Buck Run that I'm aware of. So Kenny and Cheryl are IMB missionaries in Panama. Second partner here in this category is Joseph Marica. If you guys were around for the RAM banquet, the Romanian American Mission banquet in the fall, then you would have heard from Joseph. He was with us that weekend. How many of you, just raise your hand if you're familiar when I say RAM, how many of you know what I'm talking about? Okay, good. We're doing a better job of talking about RAM. RAM is Romanian American Mission. It started here at Buck Run in the mid-90s. It was sort of birthed out of a call that the Lord gave to Bob Jackson and to others who were here to reach Romania. It was past the fall of the USSR, and doors had begun to open in Europe in ways that they had not been opened before. And they began this effort to train pastors and to plant churches in Romania. And what happened is, as the EU eventually opened up and Romania joined the EU, Christians who had trouble living in Romania, many of them left Romania and went all over Europe. And so RAM was strategically positioned already in Romania, already planting churches, already training pastors and leaders. And so when those Christians got flung all over Europe, guess what they took with them? They took the gospel with them all over Europe. And so now, RAM has planted, I always say over 400. I think now it's close to 450 churches across Europe. Some of those are in Romania. There's churches in Italy, in Austria, in Ukraine, in England. There are churches all over Europe that exist because of the Romanian American Mission. Their goal is to train healthy churches or healthy pastors that they might plant healthy churches that then plant other healthy churches. And so one of our partners that we work directly with is Joseph. Joseph began a church in his home several years ago that grew pretty quickly. And the name of their church is Sole Deo Gloria Church. They meet right now in what used to be a parking garage in Iași, Romania. They were able to finally find a place. They bought this garage, did the considerable amount of work that you would think would have to happen for you to be able to have church in a parking garage every single week. They have, even just recently, they have outgrown that parking garage, and they're trying to figure out what's next for them. It's a really dark place. It's a really hard place to plant a church. Lots of people are either completely closed off to the gospel, or they're influenced by Eastern Orthodoxy, and they think they already know the gospel, though they haven't really trusted Christ. They know some of the right answers. It's a really hard place, and yet Joseph is doing incredible work. We got to know him a bit last year as he came and shared with us during the RAM meeting. We were beginning our relationship, and part of what we do is we help to sponsor him, help to make sure that he has what he needs, and we give financially to their church and pray with them. He and I text back and forth quite a bit. I'll ask him, "What are you preaching this week?" He'll ask me, "What are you preaching this week?" And how can I pray for you? One of the things I appreciated is when Joseph came to the States and we were beginning this partnership with his church. It's just as much as we wanted to know him and we wanted to sort of get to know who he was and what his mission was and what his theology was. He was doing the same thing. And so when he came, he said, "Hey, I've watched a lot of your stuff." I wanted to know that you guys were faithful, which I really appreciated. He's not just looking for a paycheck. He's not just looking for money that we can add to their church budget. In the same way that we vetted him, he vetted us and said, "Hey, I think we're great partners." So he's a guy you can specifically be praying for as they continue to grow that church in a really dark place as part of the Romanian American Mission. Third is Children's First. Many of you knew Bill Nally. Bill just recently went home to be with the Lord a few months ago. Bill was just such a kind and sweet man. In the same way that Romania American Mission was birthed just out of a burden that the Lord had put on the heart of Bob Jackson, the same is true of Children's First with Bill Nally. The Lord put a burden on his heart to care for orphans in Haiti, and then opened doors for him to do that. That wasn't without all sorts of danger, toils, and snares. And if you've ever done work in Haiti, you know what a difficult country it is to do stuff and to do it well. And this was Bill's life work, to build an orphanage, to care for children, to see them educated. He has done that with Children's First orphanages. They have a school now on their campus. And a way to help, a ministry that helps the children once they age out of the care of the orphanage, to help them both get an education and to transition into just society, that they might be productive members of society, that might learn a trade, they might learn a skill that they could use to make a living. So we support Haiti, Children First in Haiti. That's a great work of the Lord that God has done through Bill, and thankful for the legacy that Bill has left. That outlived him, that just his faithfulness to follow wherever God opened up a door, to care for, now for over 20 years. Just consider how many orphans have been cared for. We're fed, we're taught the gospel, heard the good news of Jesus because Bill was obedient to do what God called him to do. So those are three of our partners. We're going to put in the category of trying to reach the unreached, going to hard places where there is very little gospel witness, and seeking to preach the gospel, share the gospel. We're coming alongside these partners to support them, equip them, encourage them however we can. Our second mission commitment is to plant churches. So first is to reach the unreached. Our second is to plant churches. That we think the world needs healthy churches, that the Great Commission belongs not just to individuals, but ultimately that the Great Commission belongs to the church. And so we want to see churches planted. We want to go into places that are hard to reach, and we don't just want to share the gospel. We want to see churches that are able to come into existence, and then those churches plant other churches. If you've been around Buck Run long, you've definitely heard about Overland Church and Zach and Jennifer Thurman. Our first day in this building in November of 2016, our first service, we announced that Zach and Jen and a group were leaving Buck Run to go out to Fort Collins and to plant a church. And if you talked to Zach at that time, the statistics were not in their favor. Statistically, often, the Mountain West is where church plants go to die. There's just not many of them survive. A lot of them start, and a lot of them don't make it 24 months. A lot of them die within 2 years. There were other church plants that started about the same time as Zach in their area. And Zach and Jen are one of the few of the ones that started that are still alive. Not only are they alive, but they're thriving. They're doing really, really well. They went into a dark place where there was very little gospel witness, very little faithful preaching, and planted a church. They went out originally with about 20 people from Buck Run, a team of about 20, and planted what is Overland Church. They have been in existence now for over 5 years. I was with them back in the fall, was with their college students for a college retreat, and was with them on a Sunday morning. They were gifted a building that they've done a lot to fix up. They're in 2 services right now because they can't fit everybody into one service, which is a wonderful problem to have. They're continuing to see just great gospel fruit. And so it's a healthy church that was born out of Buck Run. All that initial team, almost all that initial team came from Buck Run. They were so committed to being a church that plants churches that as soon as they began as a church with a plan to, as soon as they could, to plant another church. Just as they had been planted out of Buck Run, their goal was as soon as we're able to, as soon as the Lord opens up a door, we want to plant another church. And so that's exactly what's happening. We just in the last year, they've sent Brooke and Buddy Sampson, who were a part of the original team that left Buck Run to go out to Fort Collins to plant Overland. They've sent Brooke and Buddy Sampson to Durango, Colorado, which you think, well, that's still in Colorado. It must be really close. I think, Scott, it's like an 8.5-hour drive from Fort Collins. So it might as well be on the other side of the country. It's a really far distance from where they are. And they're taking about 25 people from Fort Collins, from Overland Church, about a whole team of about 25, leaving there and going to Overland, Durango, to plant this new church. Now, just put yourself in Zach's position as this pastor of what is, in many ways, still a really brand new baby church. Do you think he could use the 25 people that he's sending to Durango to plant a new church? Do you think it'd be useful to him in Fort Collins? Oh, absolutely they would be. Who are you sending? You're sending your best and brightest, right? You're not sending the people who aren't doing anything. You're sending the people who are in and committed and serving. And so there has been quite a hit to Overland, but they're committed, trusting the Lord will provide, the Lord will give us what we need, and it's worth it. We just had a team in Durango a few weeks ago. We'll have one coming up next weekend, and then they launch as a church on Easter. And God has opened up doors for them. You heard Buddy talk to us a few weeks ago. It's a really dark place. It's very few churches that are faithfully preaching the gospel. There is a college campus there that Buddy has just described as one of the darkest places he's ever been. You just feel the darkness when you're there. And yet we have this new light that is coming. And so we're praying for Zach, that the Lord would, as the Lord has called out a large chunk of his people to go to plant this new church in Durango. We're praying for the Lord to raise up new people in Fort Collins, that he would continue to do his work there. And then we're praying for Brooke and for Buddy and their whole team as they start Durango or Overland Durango. I think they had over 100 people at their preview service a couple weeks ago. Many people who have not heard the gospel, that are hearing the gospel. maybe for the first time, or at least considering the gospel for the first time and are coming to faith. We still have people that are the Lord is calling out of Buck Run to go to Overland. We recently just had a member who had been out west doing some other work and now is joining the team at Durango to see what the Lord is going to do there. So those are two church planting partners I want you to both be aware of and to be praying for. Our third category is our commitment to train leaders. We want to reach the unreached, we want to plant churches, and we want to train leaders. You've heard Dr. York talk about the way that Buck Run has really for a long time always sort of been a teaching church that we've wanted to pour into other pastors. Dr. York did that and still does that in his ministry in and through us. It's part of what he does as our pastor emeritus, as he goes and he trains and he pours into churches and pastors, and he does so in our name, bearing our name because he's one of us. So part of what we do when considering who to partner with is where are the places that we could come alongside pastors and leaders and help to pour into them, help to encourage them and equip them and empower them to serve their church as well. One of those partnerships has come with Connected Life Church in Birmingham, England. And one of the elders there, one of the pastors is named Tim Harrop. This actually began as a Romanian-American church, a RAM church plant in Birmingham. If you know Daniel Barr, Daniel's been with us several times. Daniel Barr was the pastor of Emmaus Church, which was a Romanian church plant that met in the evenings at a location called George Road Baptist Church. It was an English congregation. And they rented out the space to Daniel and to the Romanian congregation in the evenings. And so Daniel, they had all their services at night. That's the only time they could meet. That's when the space was available. And the English congregation met on Sunday morning. And just the way the Lord worked, the pastor of the English congregation was not in good health and was ready to retire, was ready to step down. And they began to look at all that God was doing through Daniel and in this Romanian congregation and how they were growing and the Lord was blessing them. And this English pastor said to the congregation, I think you ought to call Daniel to be your pastor. And so they did just that. And so for a time, Daniel pastored the George Road Baptist Church on Sunday mornings, and then in English, and then he pastored the Romanian church, Emmaus Church, on Sunday nights in Romanian. It's very difficult to do, to have two different congregations, to be able to preach every Sunday, but to do so in different languages, and to try to lead two leadership teams. And so his vision from the very beginning, was to see these two different expressions, these two churches, merge together and become one body. They did just that. They changed their name to Connected Life Church. Scott and I had the privilege a couple years ago to be with them. This was in the works before COVID. COVID really sort of put a hampering on that and slowed them way down. But post-COVID, they were able to finally do that and to be together into one congregation called Connected Life Church. The Sunday we were there for their first Sunday. They had, just in their praise team, and the folks represented over 10 countries, represented just even on the stage of just people playing instruments, more than that in the room. It really is a picture of heaven. All these folks from Romania, from England, from all over other parts of the world, from the Caribbean, that are here together in this church preaching the gospel and hearing the gospel preached. So one of our partners there is Tim Harrop. He's one of the elders. He has another job. He has for years been wrestling with whether or not to leave his secular work and to step full-time into vocational ministry. So we have partnered with them. Our plan has been to come and to give some trainings both for them and some of their workers. COVID has messed up a lot of that and has changed that schedule a bit. But I want you to specifically be aware of Tim. Tim is somebody I want you to be praying for. One, just as for the Lord to give him clarity of what it is that he would have him to do. But Tim recently found out that he has leukemia. Tim's about my age, so he's older, and he's got young kids. His kids are a few years older than mine, and so in the midst of trying to figure out, do I leave my work, my secular work, and do I step into ministry full time vocationally? And if I do that, can I take care of my family? Can I pay my bills if I do that? In the midst of that, which he's been wrestling with for years. Now you throw in the complication of leukemia. And just illness and sickness and all that brings with it. So, man, I want you to be aware of, one, the work that God's doing at Connected Life Church. But here's a pastor that we are connected with. Tim and I, just like Joseph and I, Tim and I text back and forth and try to stay connected to him. I want you to be praying for him. Pray for the Lord to give him clarity, to open the doors that need to open, to close the doors that need to close. But be praying for his health, that the Lord would heal him, that the Lord would give him strength. That the Lord would leave him here and be merciful to him, that he might care for his family, that he might raise his kids, and the Lord might strengthen him as he seeks to serve this congregation that is growing. Like Panama, you wouldn't think it, but England is a very dark place. There aren't many Christians there. There aren't many churches that are faithfully preaching the gospel. And then here's a church that is seeking to honor the Lord, to preach the Bible every week, to share the gospel that more people may believe and be saved. So I want you to be praying for Tim, even as we continue to work with Tim and with Daniel Barr to figure out what does it look like for us as Buckrun to come alongside them, to help train leaders, to help encourage them. I want you to specifically be praying for Tim as he seeks to lead. Fourth category. Keep rolling, or I'm going to cut into Scott's time. Is we want to send disciples. We want to reach the unreached. We want to plant churches. We want to train leaders. We want to send people. We want to connect our people with our partners on the ground. Now, I hope that you've heard us say that our goal is to be partnered with true partners, people that we know and love and trust, that we know the work that they're doing, that they're long-term, they have a long-term presence where they are, that they're preaching the gospel, that they're faithful and seeking to plant new churches. So that when we partner with people, our ask is not, where would be fun for us to go? And let's send some people and see if maybe we can do some mission work while we're there, right? Or just be honest, if you've been on very many mission trips, there's probably at some point you went on what was a vacation with a little bit of volunteer work sprinkled in. That you went to a fun place and got to do a bunch of fun stuff, and then maybe for a couple days you worked with a missionary, you went and did some work somewhere. Our goal is not to say, what would be fun for us to do, let's go do that, and maybe we can help somebody along the way, is that we work with our partners to say, what do you need, what needs do you have, and of the needs that you have, which of them could we meet? That's how we decide where to go. It's not where do we want to go, what would be fun for us. It's where is there good gospel work taking place, and then how can we join in that work? And how can we join in that work in a way that helps to meet their needs so that we are not a burden to them, but that we actually help move the ball forward. If you talk to Zach or any of our missions partners, hosting a team of people to come serve you is really hard. It takes a ton of work. Right, so every time we send a team somewhere, we send a team to Fort Collins or to Durango or to Panama or to England. It takes a lot of work to bring in all these people. Kenny and Cheryl have got to have translators for us. If we go to Panama, they've got to have places for us to stay. They've got to feed us. They've got to make sure that we're safe, that we have all of our visas, all the stuff. To host a team is really difficult. What we don't want to do is, on top of all the stuff they have to do to have us, then is to babysit us or to have us do things that in the long term aren't helpful. Our goal is that when we leave, we have helped them in such a way that they're better off. Not just that we came and did some stuff and stayed busy for a week, and then when we left and nothing really changed. We want to come and help them in a way that serves them so that we help them, so that when we leave, they're in a better place than when we came. So that's how we're thinking through, where do we go? What do these mission trips look like? We're finding good gospel partners who are serving places in the world. We're partnering together with them. Oftentimes that's financially, that's through prayer, that's through support, long distance. And then when we're going, we're saying, what do you need and how can we meet it? So sometimes there are gaps between when we take trips. It's not because we don't love Kenny and Cheryl or we don't love our church in Birmingham. It's because in talking with those partners, they're saying, hey, we're not ready yet. We've got these other things going on. We're not ready for a team yet. But hold on, wait. When we're ready, we're going to tell you, and then we want you to send a team, and here's what they're going to do. So we're not sending teams just to send teams. We're not going places just to go places. We're going places that we may partner with these local partners who are doing good gospel work, that when we leave, they're still going to be there, which is a huge thing. What we can accomplish in a place in 10 days is very little if there is no continuing long-term gospel presence there. We're going to to strengthen long-term partners that are established in the area. So we want to send people to these places. So we've taken trips recently, both to Fort Collins and to Durango. We've got another trip coming up to Durango next weekend, and then later in the year. We seek to partner even with short-term partners like IMB missionaries that Will and the students partnered with in the Balkans last summer. We have trips planned to Panama. We're hoping to work out with our partners in England. If you wonder why we haven't been to England in a bit, part of it is we're trying to work with them, and we're waiting to hear from them. What do you need, and how can we help you? And they're trying to figure that out. And we're not going to go until they're ready to receive us. We're not going to go until we can serve them. We're hoping Scott and Will have plans to go see Joseph in Romania later this year. One, that we might get to know them better, that they might get to know us better, but that we might lay eyes on their ministry, that we might be able to see what needs do you have that we might be able to meet. What areas of weakness do you have that we could come along and strengthen you or encourage you, that we don't want to just send a team of people to Romania to twiddle their thumbs for 10 days, that we want to lay eyes on their ministry, to partner with them so that when we send a team, that team is useful and can serve them well. So we want to send. So I would encourage you to be praying for how the Lord might open doors for you to go. Again, we talked about Kenny and Cheryl. Maybe you think, maybe you think you've reached a point in your life where you think, man, I escaped. The Lord has not called me to be a missionary. Whew, I made it. I think Kenny and Cheryl probably thought the same thing. And yet, at the end of their working life, the end of their regular working years, heading into retirement, that's when God called them to go to the mission field. So I just would encourage you to keep every option on the table, to pray and ask the Lord, what is the Lord wanting to do in you? What is the Lord calling you to do? Even as you think about our missions partners, how might the Lord be calling you to serve on teams that go? Some of you would say maybe you can't go. There's financial burdens, or there's physical burdens, or things that would keep you from going. How can you be praying for those that do go? How can you be praying for these partners that are on the ground? All these partners we talked about are going to have services today. They're going to do the same things that we do. They're going to gather and pray and read the scriptures and preach. We can be praying for them, praying for the work that God is doing for them, doing in and through them. How can you be praying for people from Buck Run that are going to go? How can you help people go? We have money budgeted to help send people. We also do things like the golf scramble. So if you're a golfer, or even if you're not a golfer, you can come play in that. We do that every year as a way to help raise funds to be able to send people on mission trips there. But a lot of what happens when we help to send people on trips that financially, that it's a sum of money that they don't have on their own. Some of that comes through budgeted stuff. Some of that comes through the golf scramble. A lot of that happens from individual believers, individual church members saying, hey, I can't go on this trip. Physically, I can't do it, or work-wise, I don't have the days off. I can't go on this trip, but I could pay for it. And so, is there somebody that could go on this trip that can't pay for it, and how could I come alongside and partner with them so that I can't go, but my money could go? I could pay for somebody else to go in my place. So be praying about the ways the Lord could use you. How could you either go, or how could the Lord use you to help other people go, that we might continue and strengthen these partners that are long-term and on the ground. Last category is we want to serve our community. Most of what we've focused on so far has been outside of Frankfort. It's been outside of our local community, but we want to serve our community. You'll see, I think, a list. That's not an exhaustive list, but it is a representative list of different ministries and services in our community that we partner with. Serve Frankfort, Reach Frankfort, seeking to serve our community. If you've not been a part of Serve Frankfort, we have one coming up soon. Scott, do you know that date off the top of your head? April 13th, in which we offer basically our services to schools, to different places in the community that we could come paint, we come repair things, come pray for them, that we might just love on them. It has opened up a ton of doors for us, particularly in the school system, of being able to share the gospel and to have influence there, because we've just asked, what needs do you have? And then of those needs, here are the needs that we could meet. And so we have gained a lot of favor even within the school system through Serve Frankfort. We work with both Access Men's Shelter, ROSM, we do a lot of benevolence through ROSM, the Crisis Pregnancy Center Avenues, Prison ministry, we have a group of guys that go every Thursday night to share the gospel in prisons, that do a Bible study that has borne just a ton of fruit. We're just going into a hard place where guys are vulnerable, and they're hurting, and we have a group of men that go in every week to share the gospel with them and do a Bible study with them. We partner with Sunrise Children's Services, which helps to care for vulnerable children. We work with a food pantry and Capital Commission, which is if you're not aware, Kyle McDaniel, who's the pastor at East Frankfort, also serves essentially as a state chaplain. He works for an organization called Capital Commission, which he spends time at the Capitol, particularly when they're in session, but even outside of session, he has Bible studies, both with legislators, but with staff, with anybody in the building. And he's seen a lot of gospel fruit as he's just a gospel witness and a gospel presence of pointing people towards the truth of the word. We partner with them more than just what we do in a formal way. When I look at this list, I think one of the biggest ways that we are partnered with all of these organizations isn't what happens necessarily in the name of Buck Run, but is what happens through individual members of Buck Run. As I look at this list, think about all of these, nearly every one of these on the list. We've got members who serve in these just as individuals, not because Buck Run tells them to, but they serve. They're on the boards. They're helping to lead these organizations, which is an incredibly extends the reach of Buck Run. We can do a lot that comes in a formal ministry as Buck Run's doing these things. We can do a lot more if individual members of Buck Run have desires and burdens that God has put on their heart, and then they individually serve. That we know, at least I think, particularly in mercy ministries, in the next 20 years or so, maybe longer, there'll be a day in which some mercy ministries are going to say to churches that believe what we believe, no thanks. We won't, well, it's happened before. We don't want your help because of who you are. Now, what happens when that day comes? What happens if, when they formally cut us off, we don't want your help because of what you believe, because of who you are, we don't want your help. What happens if we've got Buck Run individuals at every layers of those institutions and organizations? Guess what? We keep influence. We get to keep caring for people in a way that when we formally get cut off, we have members in all these places. So these are great avenues that we serve and try to connect in our community. The goal is that we would keep a door open for the gospel. We don't just want to feed people. We don't just want to meet their physical needs. So that's important. That matters. I think we're called to do that. But we do it so that we may feed their ultimate need, which is their need of a Savior, that they would know and love and follow Jesus. And so in all of this is our goal, is to open up doors for the sake of the gospel, that we might continue to preach the gospel. I'm gonna quit there, and I'm gonna pass it to Scott, and he's gonna talk to you a little more about what we do and sort of how we do all these things, thinking through financial aspects and budget and whatever. I don't know what all you're gonna do.
And that's why I still have a job. I hope this has encouraged you. I hope it's made you appreciate and put on your heart and minds, if not already, to pray for our partners and to be thinking about them and to communicate with them. If you don't know how to communicate with them, we can help you with that. And many of you sent Christmas cards all the way around the world to our partners. As Chris was talking about each of them, I was shooting them messages. Perks of being all our European and Asian partners are, it's almost nighttime there. They've already worshiped today, and they're texting back how much they appreciate our church. And that's what we get to have in there. It's a true partnership and communication. And Zach and Buddy right now are praying that all of you move to Colorado. So maybe the Lord will answer that. They always want to pass that message on. I want to talk to you a little about the finances of our church. Chris, a few weeks ago, talked about our membership expectations of giving and why we give. So I'm not going to spend time on that. But I do want to encourage you and share a few things that you may or may not know. I think as Christians, we give because God's called us to. We give above and beyond that as we want to live generous lives. We want to fuel the ministry and missions of our church and missionaries around the world. But if another reason we evaluate where we give is if we trust what's happening. There's lots of great organizations to give to, but when you see a need, one of your first things is like, is that where my money should go? So hopefully you believe in what we're doing as a church, what we're sending a lot of money to, which you've learned about this morning. And I want to encourage you, hopefully, with how we handle our finances, that we have a lot of great people with a lot of integrity and a lot of accountability that oversee and work with the funds to steward that. That starts with our finance committee, which you elect every year. You elect 3 people to serve on a 3-year rotation every year in our November family meeting. Those folks, those 9 people, meet monthly. They're joined by our treasurer and assistant treasurer, which is Jennifer Necessary and Mary Rhodes, whom you also elect. And then our business manager, Kara Hutcherson, and myself. We meet monthly, and they do a wonderful job of going through everything that we've spent money on. They ask a lot of thoughtful questions. Some folks view committees or meetings of those type of things as like a negative thing. I come home almost every month and tell Catherine that I just love those people. It was a great time because it's a joy to do the Lord's work. Not everybody's wired to want to dig into finances and like do those type of things. Whatever the Lord's called you to do, though, hopefully you find joy in it. And I do, and I believe those folks around the table do as well, as they seek to make sure that things are being done well, and that we can justify expenses, and that there's a reason, and that we have plans, and that when we need to adjust, when a pandemic hits, we slam the brakes on lots of things. They're there to steady the wheel and help us make decisions. We do not have infinite resources. We serve a God who does, but Buck Run does not. And sometimes that means tough choices, and we've got to decide, are we going to do missions thing A or missions thing B? And that committee helps speak into that along with our staff and other leaders. I trust them. You do a wonderful job of electing them, and they do a wonderful job of again, asking great questions. And I want to affirm Kara Hutcherson, who Chris talked to you about when he walked through the staff. Kara's our business manager. Whatever that title, I'll just tell you what Kara does. Kara is a woman of incredible integrity who is the point person of dealing with so many of our finances. She's in the room, but I won't point her out because I like working with her. But I get to see day in and day out, Kara is thoughtfully handling things. There's controls and systems in place. We have a policy in place that the Finance Committee recently reviewed of how we handle money. So when you give cash or a check or online or how credit cards are done and all the different ways, we live in a fallen world. You see headlines of churches having fraud and those type of things, and we are made up of sinners in this church too, and that could happen here, but we have a lot of things in place to help with that to make sure it doesn't. And honestly, that starts with Kara and just the integrity, and she loves that she has, not just for accounting and stuff, because if it was that, she would have left a long time ago, because it's not fun working with us on some of those things. And the nature of ministry is there's last minute changes and new partners and needs and things. Kara has a true love for the gospel and the church, and we see that in her day-to-day life. So I want to affirm her in that and hope that you will as well. So that committee oversees a lot of those things, and then Kara and I are day-to-day with our staff and other leaders of what that looks like. All of our partners are responding. So my watch is blowing up here. I just got a lot of hearts, and I love Buck Run from Romania. So there you go. I want to tell you how our budget works. Every year you get the ministry plan. I'm not going to go over the budget because you have access to this. You can see it at buckrun.org/plan. If you need a copy of this, I can totally get you one. But I want to tell you how we get there. So we don't just have like a set target date where we start talking about budgeting. That's something that, just like in your own home, budgeting is something we're talking about all the time. We have expenses that we know are coming in 3 years that we're keeping track of and those type of things. So there's always a bit of that's always kind of in the undercurrent. But in the summer each year, we do ratchet up and begin to put down on paper what we believe the next year's budget will be that we've got to work towards to bring to you to approve every year. Our staff, Karen and I are working with our staff and other ministry leaders to figure out, like, it's not a question of like, hey, how much money do you need? Because like, what does that even mean? It's like, hey, what are you trying to do this year? What's effective in your ministry? In my role with the staff, those are conversations we're always having, not just about finances, but we all work together. We all work closely together. So we know I can tell you right now, what's something Will would love to do in 2 years in the student ministry, or where he's wanting to take missions as he's brought this on. We have that relationship, and we're able to know. and our staff work closer together to know, like, everybody's got a great idea. Like, next year, everybody wants to do X. And then we just kind of evaluate, like, okay, if we can only do a few of these, which ones? And I love our staff. We had these conversations last year. It came down the last kind of thing in the budget internally. We could only do one, and it felt pretty obvious which thing we were going to do. And the pastor that was going to miss out on that was totally affirming of that, and even agreed, like, I think that's a better initiative for the church. And that comes from, it's another sign of health in our church, is health of our culture, of our staff, and their love to just do what you've called them to do and pay them to do is to lead and minister in those areas. So we throw all that together and work out a budget. Obviously, we forecasted as best we can. There's no fixed income here of what we think is realistic for the budget, and that's where the finance committee comes in. Carrie's usually figuring out kind of a target goal, and the committee's is being helpful. You got folks on there that are like, spend it all, it doesn't matter. And you got folks that are like, we can't spend $1. And that's how we grade. And we purposely set the committee up that way, and we come out with a great group of people that I think every year roll out a budget to you that shows our heart for ministry and missions. I'm going to walk through the categories of our budget. You'll see them on the screen there. Again, if you go to buckrun.org/plan, you can see the numbers. Our budget's has 300 something line items, which you're welcome to come look at. There's a process for that, but we know most of you don't want to. But there's people that do. The first is missions. Missions obviously plays a big part. You've heard a lot about our partners. A big expenditure when it comes to our missions budget is the cooperative program. Now, the cooperative program is at the thrust what makes us Southern Baptist, in addition to our beliefs. The cooperative program is familiar with mutual funds, where you can purchase a mutual fund that has lots of different stocks. That's how I view the cooperative program. When we give as a church to the cooperative program, which we're giving almost $160,000 each year to the cooperative program, we're investing in ministries all over our country, our state, our country, and the nation. So every dollar that we give, 45% of that goes to SBC, Southern Baptist Convention entities, and 55% stays here in the state through the Kentucky Baptist Convention and their entities. So at the SBC level, the Southern Baptist Convention level, half of what goes to them goes to the International Mission Board. This is what funds almost 4,000 missionaries that are around the world. Kenny and Cheryl Morris, who we talked about this morning, are members of Buck Run. They're with the International Mission Board. The IMB, for short, is unique in that it fully supports, it fully funds their missionaries. So Kenny and Cheryl do not have to come back to Buck Run every year and try to raise support from us. We do not financially support Kenny and Cheryl directly. We do some of their ministries, but their income, their retirement, their insurance, they are fully funded through the IMB. And the IMB does that through two primary means: the cooperative program and the Lottie Moon Christmas offering, which we know is the walk to the manger, where we all walk right here and give. That fuels, again, almost 4,000 missionaries and their kids all over the world. It's by far the largest missions organization, and it does an incredible work. So our money goes to that. Our money goes to the North American Mission Board, which is planting churches, which, again, we're a part of. So we partner with NAM, North American Mission Board, to plant Overland in Fort Collins and now Overland in Durango. Church planting is not fully funded through entities. It's not fully funded through the North American Mission Board. They have to raise support through churches, and then they get training and leadership and funds through NAM. It's a partnership at the church planting level. So that's what that looks like. NAM does lots of things. There's lots of resources. We could spend 6 weeks talking about everything that all these organizations do. But NAM and IMB work together for something called Sin Relief. And this is where it's a great organization where a Buck Run member is actually the vice president of, Josh Benton, who just moved back, is the vice president of Sin Relief. And when there's hurricanes, floods, tornadoes in our country, they're mobilizing along with disaster relief teams at the state level. They're sending folks internationally. Same things with disasters, with famine, with wars, with very different disasters than we have. Sin Relief, again, is doing that. And we're funding that through the cooperative program. There's other entities, but one more I want to hit on is there's 6 Southern Baptist seminaries. And if you can go to seminary and get half off tuition if you're a member of a Southern Baptist church by being a member of Buck Run, because people give to the cooperative program, it pays for half of tuition. That's us investing in the next generation of pastors and missionaries and church leaders. We have multiple Buck Run members, and not even on our staff that are at Southern right now. And you can go to any of the seminaries. There just happens to be one who our former pastor is really a fan of, that's right down the road, so that's where we all end up. But you can participate in that. And again, through giving to Buck Run and Buck Run giving to the cooperative program, you're investing in thousands and thousands and thousands of people that to equip churches and go to the nations. I've been a beneficiary of that. All of our staff has benefited from that. Our director of students, Neil, over here, is Southern's newest student, I think, and he's getting that. That's possible because we give to the cooperative program, so it's a wonderful thing. And then here at the state level, we're planting churches. There's disaster response. From a couple years ago, we had floods and tornadoes, all these things. We're helping do ministry in that. There's evangelism teams. There's church equipping teams. Kentucky Baptist Convention does a lot of great things. Crossings is an entity of the KBC. So our funds are used in those ways. And Buck Run has a lot of involvement. Brought up Crossings. I don't know if you know, we got a lot of involvement there. Chris is actually a chair of the Public Affairs Committee. He loves it. Best thing he does. He's at the Capitol sometimes. I serve on the mission board, which is like the trustees. Dr. York and Tanya both recently served as IMB and NAM trustees. Wesley Noss just came back on as a trustee of Guidestone, which is another SBC entity. I already mentioned Josh Benton, who's a vice president at NAM. There's a lot of involvement in that, which is helpful for us of knowing like what's going on and are things healthy? Is this something we want to be invested in? And the answer overall is yes. But that is something that we do evaluate. Other missions giving, all those different partners we listed, our local partners. There's a lot that goes into that, and you can always give more to missions. It's one of the hardest things, I think, in my role is so many of you, the Lord has burdened for certain ministries and missions. And often ministry and missions needs lots of resources, but one of those resources is money. And it's not my favorite thing to do, but I'll just sit down almost weekly and have to say like, hey, that's awesome, and I want to help you, but like, there's not a space for that in the church's budget to fund that, or that's not something that we can take on right now, because we can do anything but not everything kind of thing. And we don't want that to be an impediment to your personal ministry, but not every ministry that the Lord stirs in our own hearts becomes a church's ministry. And it's really hard, but it's also conversations we love to have, because it means God's at work in our heart, and you're responding to the preaching and teaching of the Word and the prompting of the Spirit. So we can always give more to missions, and that's something we evaluate. We certainly want to. I'm going to talk in a minute about how we hope to give more to missions in the coming years. The second category is ministries. This is the stuff that we do here at church. So there's to buy this stuff that we're going to partake in, all the way to like what funded Amplify last weekend, and kids ministry and curriculum that I know some of you got handed out today for a new class. All these different ministries we experience, as well as the fellowship events that we try to do monthly for us to have community together. We try to offset, sometimes those are paid things, and sometimes we try to offset as much cost as we can to just to create the health of our church, to help us grow in our discipleship. And then personnel. The church, which Chris walked through, our staff, we just have an awesome team. That's not something you can believe this or not. We say it all the time, and we mean it. There are churches that say that all the time, and they don't mean it, but we do. We love our staff, love every member of our staff. Every member of our staff works hard. I think we have great value in our staff. And the church does a wonderful job of paying for our pastors and staff so that we can do the work of ministry and we can lead and facilitate things without having to worry about providing for our family. I'm so grateful that you provide for my family, and I seek to work hard because I'm not distracted by that, by what all those kids are going to eat, of which they're eating more and more, and there's a lot of them. And they get sick all the time, but I don't have to worry about that. I mean, I do have to worry about it, but not how our insurance, because of the church. And that frees us up to do this, to focus on teaching and preaching and leading. And then operations. This is the stuff that it's not fun. I'd rather give more to missions than to sealing our parking lot this year, which is going to be a massive expense. But it matters. And all this stuff matters. This is an area where we try to be really lean. We don't try to have a lot of fluff in there, but we also want to make things happen. We just had, as you've noticed likely, a lot of tech replacement in here because everything was breaking after only 7 years. And we weren't happy about it, but these are things that we need. You can hear me right now because I'm wearing a microphone. And those are things that we have to buy and do. And then last is debt retirement. You want to talk about not fun, is debt and paying off debt. And 25% of our budget goes to a loan payment. That's a lot of money. But our loan was a great tool that we were able to use to leverage to move in here. And we've seen a lot of growth. We've seen a lot of people's lives change because we continue to advance and to move to this property. So it was a great decision, I think, by the church. And the church is aggressively led by the finance committee and by your generosity seeking to pay that off as fast as we can. So we took a $7.25 million loan, which is after we had a lot of money in the bank that we spent to move here. A lot of you remember that well. Some of you were not here then, and that's another testament of why it was important that we to move and prepare for this day. Our interest rate is awesome. It's at 4%, but it's not fixed. It's commercial loan, so it's going to be going up soon. And I don't know if you're familiar with interest rates. That's something we want to avoid as much as possible, which is why we're aggressively paying that off. We have been since day one. When we closed on that loan in the spring of 2017, we have regularly made extra principal payments at different rates. But we want to pay that off quickly. There's a decision, and this is something that can be disagreed with, and some folks do, that, we could just pay our payment and have that loan for a long time, and then be putting more money towards missions or ministries or other things right now, which we have not reduced for the loan, but we certainly have not grown them at the same rate that we would have if we didn't have this loan payment. Or we can be as aggressive as we can in paying off our loan so that in just a few years, there really is light at the end of the tunnel, which I'm happy about, we can be done, and now we've freed up 25% of our budget to do lots of different things: missions, ministries, operations, saving for future development of our building or our property, the building's not getting younger, all those type things. And that's the route our finance committee's gone. And I appreciate that. I certainly agree with that. And that's why last November we started the Advance campaign. When we were doing a campaign to move into this building, that was an easy sell. The first Sunday in this building, we launched a new campaign. We did two things that day in addition to worship. We announced that we were going to plant a church at Overland, and we announced a new campaign. It was like, hey, new building, I want to be all a part of that. But saying hey, we're going to do a campaign and we're going to pay off debt, you're really not going to see a tangible thing. It's harder, and yet you responded. And through the Advance campaign and our loan, we do hope we'll be close to paying off the loan in 3 years, just under 3 years now, which will be the 10-year anniversary of the building. And what that does for us is frees up $490,000 in our budget. Again, not all that's going to go to missions or ministry. Some of that's going to have to go into continuing to invest and care for the building. But just think of how we can support church plants. The next Overland, wherever they end up now, or the Lord raises you up to be a church planter or a missionary. What we can do with our partners, what we can do in our community, and what we could do with ministries here in the church or with staffing decisions when we have $490,000. We have a lot of ideas for that, and we'll see where the Lord takes that. But that's why we want to be certainly really aggressive in that. Our loan stands at $2.7 million. I mean, it's just unbelievable. We have a great partner in the bank that we use for that loan. And their vice president, who's actually just retired, but their vice president's a believer, someone close to our church. And he took Dr. York out to lunch a couple years ago and was like, hey, as a believer and somebody that loves your church, I'm just blown away and just love what you guys are doing and paying off your loan so aggressively. But as a banker, feel free to slow down. We are saving, as a church, we're saving a lot of interest. And we view that as good stewardship. We're thankful. We think it's good. You pay your bills. We certainly will. We're grateful for that partnership with the bank, and that's every dollar that they've earned for us. We have no problem paying them their interest, but we're also very happy to pay them less. And that's money that we can save that we'll be able to use in the future. So if you ever have questions about that, I'd love to talk to you about it. And if you're not a part of the Advance campaign, I want to encourage you to be a part of it. To not cut into your other giving there, but to recognize how it can set up this church for the future. The future's real soon. I mean, just a few years, we could pay that off and have a lot of different options. And to not be tied to any other entity or anything for our funds would, I think, be important. And last, I want to talk to you about how you can give. We often have questions on this. That's changed through the years. When the pandemic began, we stopped passing baskets, and we've never seen a decrease in giving from that, because you are not driven by whether or not a plate or a basket or anything else comes by you. You're driven to give because of who you are and because of who you belong to. We're thankful for that. You can give in person for sure. There's offering envelopes here. There's boxes in the back. There's boxes on the walls around the building where you can give. You can always, some folks bring their offering by the office every week or mail it. Half of our giving, though, now is online. And we view that as real positive. That's helpful for us on controls and lots of different things than how we process that. But I do want to make you aware, though, that online, obviously there's processing fees with those things. I would encourage you, if you give online, to give via an ACH or a bank draft. That is significantly cheaper to us. We've negotiated a rate where it's almost $0. It's completely negligible for us. If you give via debit or credit card, that's a 3% fee, which I don't want to hinder you from hear me. I want you to give online if you're giving online. That's how we give online. I want to encourage you to do it. It's a great shift for our church, for those that want that. But just know that there's ways that you can help your dollar go further, even if you just give via straight out a bank draft, which Kara and I are happy to help you set up. We often have conversations with folks about how to do all these different giving things, but above all, I want you to give in a way that you feel comfortable. It's not about how you give, and it's not even about what you give. It's about why you give, and we don't want to undermine that in any way. So that's kind of our finance stuff. Again, I want to encourage you to, every year, we're just a few months away, about 6 months away from me standing up at the end of a service and imploring you to pick up a copy of the ministry plan and to actually read it, and particularly to read the budget part. And as one of the folks that's closest to our finances and works on this, I want you to know what it's going to, why it's going to things, and you'll learn a lot about our church by what we budget. An assignment in pastoral ministry in seminary, and it still is because people still reach out, is you have to collect different churches' budgets and look over them. You can learn a lot about, just like I can learn a lot about your checkbook and you can from mine, you can learn about a church from their budget. And I want you to know a lot about your church. So I want you to read this. I want you, if you have questions, to ask. It's okay to disagree or be like, I don't know. And the last thing I want to speak to is, we've been getting this question some, is we throw all of our money outside of the advance campaign, which goes to debt retirement, or we have a missions fund that helps for mission trips and support our partners. But we give everything else through our general fund. We don't have a kids ministry fund or a worship fund or anything like that. And that's because we're one church and we want to be unified in all things. If just the people that participated in kids ministry, if only us with kids gave to the kids ministry, there might not be enough money, to be honest. But what would that say about our church? And if you graduated out of kids and you don't want to serve there anymore and you don't want to give there anymore, that's not what the body of Christ is. You're giving to Buckron and you're invested in all of it. It's like when Will last weekend at the end of a great weekend for our student ministry with Amplify could say that he's thankful that he's a part of a church that cares about the next generation. Because if you gave to Buckron, you made last weekend happen. Those students paid to go, but they did not pay to cover everything that went into that, and they don't pay for lots of different things. You are a part of that. You may have never been in the kids ministry area, but if you're given to Buck Run, you are a part of a wonderful ministry that is pouring the gospel into in a safe and loving way into so many kids, like 100 of them every Sunday. It's awesome. You're blessing missionaries and churches around the world that you will never go to, and the people you will never meet until heaven. And that's what it looks like to pour into the church. You're helping in so many ways. You're helping organizations in our community that you may not even know it exists. You see Rosalind on a screen, you're like, I don't even know what that is. But yet you're blessing folks that have real needs in our community. And just know that there's people that are looking over that. There's people that are asking questions. There are people that are in communications with partners. And sometimes that's tough questions. And sometimes we do lead to differences that lead to us severing relationships. We've had a local partner that we're no longer a part of because we're just not on the same page on issues of sexuality. And that's led to us, neither of us really wanted to be together. We weren't good for each other. And those are all things that we're doing. And I'm just grateful to be a part of a church for that. I want you to have confidence in that when you give, things are being given and taken care of well, but also that you're making a real meaningful difference. We are a nonprofit, and that's what we are. We're not trying to, we certainly have savings. We want to prepare for rainy days, but we have nothing better to do with our money than invest in God's kingdom. And that's the heart of our church. That's the heart of you. And I want to invite you to be a part of that. If you've never given to Buck Run, or maybe you're just giving, have like it's a gym membership and it's just some fee. I don't want you to give like that. I want you to view your giving like that. I want you to view your giving biblically and to be invested in what God is doing. And if you do that, Buck Run will continue to be faithful and continue to just make a difference, hopefully in your life, in my life, and the lives of people that the first-time guests that we're going to have in just a few minutes, which we have every week, and are going to make it possible that we're reaching them and connecting with them, let alone our partners around the world. So again, if you have questions about that, please let me know or let Kara know. We would love to talk to you about it. Thank you for your generosity. Thank you for caring. Thank you for questions and for reading this. When it comes out, we don't just do this because we have to. We do it because we want you to be invested. We don't want you to blindly do things of anything here at the church. We want deep relationship and partnership with you. So I'm going to close in prayer, and I'm going to pray specifically for our partners. I'm so thankful for them. We have the easy life, but I pray that God would continue to call out our best and brightest to go around the country and to the nations and to do hard things. But what a joy it is that we get to be a part of this church, at least for now, till the Lord leads us somewhere else. Let's pray. Father, thank you for your mighty work through your Son on the cross. God, and the great commission that he's given us and called us to go. And God, for some of us, that is to go every day here in Frankfort and to live life on mission. And what a glorious responsibility that is to, God, to herald the gospel to our coworkers, to our friends, and our homes. God, through folks we meet in our community. But God, you have set apart and called out many to go in different ways, to plant churches and to reach unreached people groups and to go to really hard and dark places where they may even jeopardize their lives. And God, we pray for them. We are thankful for the partnership we have with many of those people. God, may you be glorified every day in their lives. God, may we do the best job we can of holding the rope for them, of not just supporting them financially, but encouraging them, praying for them, interacting with them. God, helping them avoid the loneliness that comes from being on the field, the separation that comes from being away from family and friends and the local church that they were once a part of. And God, I know that you are calling others. There might even be people in this room, God, that are, God, ignoring your call to their life to do something different, to serve in a different way. Maybe moving, maybe not. But God, I pray that we would be a people of obedience to you no matter the cost. God, that we would take serious our responsibility to share the gospel no matter where we live, no matter what our job title is. But God, that you have entrusted us with something that everyone needs. And God, there are so many people around us that need it. God, may we be proclaimers of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Yes, in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.